Here's Brody Brazil.
Okay, you saw the thumbnail, you saw the title of this video, you still clicked on it, so you're expecting me to get going here with the commentary. But man, I need a minute. This is heavy. Like, personally for me, I never thought I'd be here making this video. I'm not actually, well, there it is. I wasn't ready for that. It's a question. It's a thought process. I feel dirty even reading it off the screen because I don't know about it, but I'll talk our way through it here. Would the Sharks actually consider trading Logan Couture? Now, at this point, he hasn't come back from injury, but when he does in the rest of this season before the deadline, maybe this upcoming summer or beyond, or anytime soon, would the Sharks consider trading their captain? Oh, man. Now that I've said it, maybe he's watching this. Oh, boy. I feel like I've got a lot to explain. So let me do that before anything else. I've got a couple different angles to get to. The team's angle, another team's angle, Logan's angle. I want to get the hockey guy's angle in just a second. My angle is this to start off with. Yes, this is hard to suggest for me and probably for you to even digest. This is Logan Couture, a homegrown player drafted by the Sharks. We saw him come up through the system. We saw him debut, was it 2009? Instantly, everybody knew he'd be a great player. At some point, I realized, hey, I think this guy could be a future captain of this team if it all worked out that way. It did. He's done some amazing things. He's been such a key figure and player for this team over so many years now. And so personally and professionally, yeah, this is hard for me to even get into here. It's all hypothetical. I'm just kind of talking this out. I don't know anything. I don't want to push anything. I don't want to be too overly pressuring here on any of this, but I just want to consider this because I think it's an interesting conversation. If they were to trade Couture, and obviously in the rebuild process the team's in, it certainly makes now harder. In the same way that when they traded Erik Karlsson from last season to this one, this past offseason, you knew it would make this upcoming season harder without, the 100-point defenseman who won the Norris Trophy last year. 101 points total last year. A big deal of this, and we could just end the conversation if Logan wasn't okay with this. If he's okay with this, I'm okay with talking about it. And I don't know. Again, this is another part. I should say this from the very beginning. I don't know how he feels about this. Haven't had that conversation. And we'll get into his thoughts and, like I said, his angle in just a second. But for me, how I feel about any of this largely relates to how he would feel about this. If he's in, I'm probably more in. But if he's out, I'm instantly out also in just a second. Like in a split second. And yeah, my angle also in this is that it would just be the end of an era. Like, we've already moved on. We're already in the rebuild, and there have already been some difficult decisions made, and Burnsy's not around, and Karlsson's not around, and some others are not around. But I mean, this is the captain, right? So those are my things I had to get on the video and out of the way very first. But now I want you to hear what the hockey guy said. Great follow, by the way. Great subscription here on YouTube if you're not already subbed. The hockey guy is tremendous in his takes. He and I chatted about Logan and the future of this situation just the other day. Here's what he said.
No, I think that makes sense. Like, I know back in the late 90s when Ray Bourque was traded out of Boston, like as a Bruins fan in that moment, I was upset that he ended up going to Colorado, but I was happy for him when he won there.
Right.
Because I knew he didn't have a lot of years left in the National Hockey League, and I knew he wasn't going to win a cup in Boston, so I was glad he won it elsewhere. And with Couture, yeah, I would think that a team like Tampa, a team like Colorado, maybe even Dallas would say, look, this would work. Like, obviously him and Pavelski know each other well. If Dallas was able to make the money work,
it
would be a perfect fit. Dallas hasn't been shy about picking up veterans. So it'll be interesting to see when he does come back what he wants to do. And I would think whatever his choice is, that's what the Sharks would honor. As long as he passes the medical tests to go. Yeah, as long as he passes that physical with the trade. Yeah, I think he'd be a solid addition for anybody, especially for those teams that are looking to arm themselves for a potential playoff run. There are some teams who are pretty high up in the standings who definitely could use some more depth
Yeah.
and some more leadership up front. So that would be a very popular target if that were to happen.
Okay, so now let's get to a couple different angles of this, starting with Logan Couture's angle, like from his perspective on it. Again, I feel like the player perspective in this is so important. We want to give him the professional courtesy of, well, how do you feel about this? He's turning 35 in March. He's only played all of his NHL hockey for the San Jose Sharks. He was a part of so many good years, playoffs, conference finals, again, conference finals, Stanley Cup final. Unfortunately, they didn't win it in 2016. But he was surrounded by so many legends, and I think, honestly, that experience made him a better player. He's grown from it. But currently, right now, on a 4-year, 4-season playoff skid, this season's going to turn into 5. And who knows how many more years the rebuild process takes until the Sharks are even back in that competitive conversation again. Just making the playoffs, let alone trying to go deep, let alone being built to try and win the whole thing. So just do the math quickly, right? He's 35, been out of it for 4 years, desperately wants to get back into it, doesn't know how long it's going to take, and his contract is for this year and 3 more as of right now with the Sharks. So again, I'm not saying that he wants to leave his team, the one that he's captain of and probably loves his teammates and loves where he lives and is now a father. It's the family situation. So he's been around the Bay Area and San Jose for a long time. Not suggesting he's like really trying to get out of this, but professionally, if you're a competitor and you want to win a Stanley Cup and you only have a couple more years, like just crunch the numbers. He is coming off this injury, the lower body injury, which sounds severe, by the way. He said recently that he didn't even know if he'd ever even be able to return to playing in the NHL. Like, it was that bad at one point. He had some thoughts like it was not going to be possible. So it goes to show you where he's been. A lot of stuff has happened for him. Like I mentioned, also recently became a dad. He's got the modified no trade clause in his contract. But again, in the same vein of Erik Karlsson, that's probably not going to be the biggest barrier in this. Again, if he's willing, if he's open to the conversation, if he's open to the search and for the Sharks to have some talks and see what's out there in the trade market, if the right thing came along, again, it comes down to Logan. He's got the modified no trade clause. He could make it a lot more difficult if he doesn't want to go and he wants to stay in San Jose. He could kind of work his way into that happening. Okay, how about from the Sharks angle? Like, this is a heavy move. Trading the captain. This doesn't happen a lot around the NHL. Usually the captain is the captain until the contract's over or the player retires. Trading the captain, it happens, right? But it's not an every season occurrence even. I think the big question for the Sharks is, well, they're doing this specifically to get a return. I don't know what the return is going to be. And again, it's even a little bit more difficult because he's just coming back from the injury. Let me also state in just a second why other teams would really be interested in his playoff services. Do you remember what Logan's track record is, like points-wise in the playoffs? I'll have it for you in just a second. But what is the return for the Sharks going to be? Draft picks, obviously. Would they be high draft picks, a frequent amount of draft picks, a long-term selection of draft picks? It's probably going to be with a playoff-bound team. I'm not sure they're going to have something higher in the selections versus the struggling teams. But what is the return? That to me is a huge deal for the Sharks. What's the return versus what you would get if you just kept Logan? Your captain, your leader, your veteran, your presence, and a very good player at 34, about to turn 35. But I think from the Sharks' angle, maybe you just listen. I'm not saying they need to go out and push a deal. Like they need to facilitate this and rush this. That's not it at all. And he's got 3 more years after this one under contract. So I think the angle for the Sharks is just keep your ears up, right? And have the conversation, but don't feel like you need to force this to happen. I think that's probably applicable no matter what anybody feels. But again, for the Sharks, if they're doing the professional courtesy thing, I think they go straight to Logan and say, We're thinking about this. Are you thinking about this? And if you aren't, it's no problem. We'll stop right there. But if you are, we might move on this. And also, it's interesting to consider when a deal like this would happen. Is it a deadline deal because there's playoff-hungry teams right now that are saying, well, we want that playoff performer, we want that veteran presence, or is it a summertime deal? My inclination is that a Sharks deal with Logan Couture for draft picks or other young prospects, I think it happens more in a deadline situation because teams are feeling and trying to fill a need that they have because they recognize where the season has taken them so far. Okay, how about from the trade angle? I'm talking about all the other teams who would consider acquiring Logan Couture. Number one, I think they want to see him play here a little bit when he does return. By the way, I'm recording this. He has yet to come back. So whenever he does come back, I think they just want to make sure, okay, what's he look like? How's he playing? Play for a couple weeks or months here, January, February, before the trade deadline. Just get that clean bill of health with the injury that's kept him out basically half this season so far. I'm expecting that's not going to be a problem. But look at Logan, 101 points in 116 total playoff games in his career. He's played well more than a full season of his career in the playoffs alone. And almost a point per game player in the playoffs over that many years and seasons of being in it. Like, there's two things to marvel at here. That he's played in 116 playoff games and that he's got 101 points in those 116 playoff games. That's why a team, a competitive team, and why I say there's going to be certain suitors here. Yeah, struggling teams probably aren't going to bite on this. But emerging teams or good teams that are missing a player, that need Logan Couture, that are going to the playoffs, this is kind of the main reason why you want Logan Couture. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, the regular season's great. His leadership is great. I put that also here. And the contract is workable. 3 years, and there'll be $20 million in contract. I think it goes 7, 7, and 6 in the final 3 years. But this is why you want Logan Couture. The playoff performer, the playoff experience. And so that would be the trade, right? Prospects or draft picks to a certain degree for a captain, captain material and a playoff performer that is a definite known commodity. So yeah, I did the video. Just feeling weird right now. I never thought I'd get to this video. This one never, and even when I realized I should probably do it, I don't feel great about this one. I just don't. Because I don't want it to happen, but if it's best for Logan, then I do want it to happen. And if it's best for Logan and the Sharks, then I really want it to happen. But I know from the fan perspective, this one's not, I don't know. Just don't put thumbs down below, right? If you don't like the topic, that's fine. Just don't do anything. But since you made it here to the end of the video, and if you thought the video was well delivered and executed, then put a thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time. Whew.